Hello, everyone, and welcome. We'll call the meeting of the Madison City Commission to order for the meeting of February 25th, 2013. Jen, would you call the roll?
Commissioner Delzer,
Here.
Commissioner Erickson,
Here.
Commissioner Waldner,
Here.
Commissioner Abraham,
Here.
Mayor Hexum.
Here. Yeah, the minutes of the February 18th meeting is a part of your record. Are there any changes or corrections to the minutes of the last meeting?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of February 18th.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded that we approve the February 18th meeting minutes as prepared. Any questions or speaking? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion is carried. You have the agenda for this meeting before you. Are there any additions or changes to the agenda?
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded to approve the agenda as prepared. Any questions or speaking to that motion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion is carried. We have no items listed under appearances, acknowledgements, and correspondence. We have no items listed under old business. We have several items listed under new business. New business number 1, application for transportation planning study, South Dakota Department of Transportation, statewide planning and research. Chad, I'll ask you, even though we have the information here, what we're aiming for.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. I just wanted to put this on the agenda. You've seen the letter that is included in the packet and then some additional supporting information that I had received from the South Dakota Department of Transportation regarding what they call a statewide planning and research program funding, that they are able to use that SPR funding, they call it, to accomplish transportation studies. There's a couple different areas that have been discussed, some generally, some more specifically in recent times, and perhaps I could touch on a few of those areas where I think there may be an opportunity to take advantage of this grant funding. Before I get into some detail, I was hoping to maybe just discuss this matter, solicit feedback from the commission. Maybe you had some input that if this was to move forward, you might want to provide feedback directing this thing one way or another, and then provided with that feedback, if we want to move forward with something, the deadline to submit this application, and I'll call it a general application, is the end of the week, this week. I think we would be able to do that if we wanted to look at a few things. Just a few things that have come up more recently, specifically, would be transportation. I would say we've discussed at different times some pavement management type discussions about trying to make the right investment at the right time on our pavement system. As we've talked recently, our pavement and our infrastructure is a significant part of our assets in our community. And one component I'm involved with a study group with, I use that term loosely, but a group composed with the folks at SDSU Wood, the study group that they provide support. LTAP, I'm sorry about that, yeah, correct. We've been talking ways to come up with a reasonable pavement management system that isn't so complicated, because sometimes they can just be over the top complicated, but then more than a system where we're just kind of a reactive improvements. And so sort of you have to collect the data and use that data from each of these streets to help make the decisions for making the right repairs on these streets at the right time. So the right improvement at the right time, that might be a subcomponent of this study. Another one that's been talked about, it was mentioned in our comprehensive plan, and also discussed at various recreation trail, is a study of the recreational trail system. Maybe most specifically an in-town system. I know that was a recommendation in the comprehensive plan of 2008 to start looking at that, and there's been recent discussions also maybe changing gears, so to speak, to look at a more of an internal trail system. And what I might envision as part of that is perhaps some feasibility components, some potential alignment locations, maybe investigate or look into a feasibility of a creek side, on the different channels we have, where there might be opportunities for crossing rail, crossing higher speed roads. Maybe there's opportunities to connect with the downtown. That was a priority in the comprehensive plan. Maybe there's opportunities to use some existing street sections where it's a fully developed neighborhoods to get down to the downtown. But just sort of look at that comprehensively. That may be another subcomponent of this. And those would be, I guess a third one that may fit into this last one I might mention would be a long-range plan, sort of looking at, encourage access management, on collector and arterial streets to what might be some reasonable standards for access management, for safety, to maintain those speeds and such like that. That's one thing that can be looked at. Efficient traffic flow and such like that. Perhaps as part of a long-range plan to look at the city as a whole, our transportation system. Are we, with the bypass, there could be some corridor component studies to the bypass which may bring in the county, in that case, additional jurisdictions. That's what, when I talked with the individual from the state, Steve Graham, he wrote the letter here. A lot of times when they get into a master plan, a long-range plan like that, they try to receive and bring in feedback from some of these additional jurisdictions, because that has a significant impact on the city, obviously, the bypass. And then, perhaps just a comprehensive plan, how are we getting in and out of the city? Do we look, there's been discussion recently with the LEPC subcommittee of 15th Street, and, some of the development on DSU and the high school and such like that, and up there. So there's a couple different items I think to look at. There's an opportunity. Typically, I understand this is a 80-20. It may seem unorthodox that we don't have a full, complete plan put forth here for us to say, well, this is our plan. Let's go forward. This is the proposal. From my discussions with them and my discussions with the Aberdeen city engineer, the Brookings city engineer, and the Vermillion city engineer, is that these studies are more, this is more of a general application. You kind of lay out some of your concepts of what you think you might want to try to accomplish with this. And then there's a advisory team that involves city, DOT, and then advisory folks within the city, whether it's a rec trail committee member, city commission member, or whatever, and you come together and you refine the scope of the study. Should they, they look at this and think it's warranted, and this be something that they might want to look into helping Madison prepare. And then that group, that advisory committee can, as I understand it, focus where we want to, so that's the idea of a kind of sort of a general application that's refined later if they see merit in the application. So with that being said, I didn't want to get into too much detail, but I wanted to give you some feedback of what I have received from some people who are already using and implementing some of these studies. Some feedback, some information as to what I see and have heard recently as discussions and identified as potential needs for the city, and then also feedback from others who have used this, and by and large, the folks who are done Vermillion and Brookings are very pleased with what they have. Now to be fair, they've had some pressing issues that have really driven this. And I don't necessarily see a hard pressing issue that we need to be looking at this. However, I also don't believe there's ever been a comprehensive look at the transportation system for the city of Madison and what is our arterials and collectors going to look like? What are the cross sections? Are we going to maintain them like a residential street, like 9th Street? Or do we look at when that's time to be rebuilt at, do we add a turn lane? You know, all these kind of concepts, I envision could be discussed in this in some level of detail or another. I don't believe, well, no, I know we're not bound by anything by submitting an application, but it would just put us into, for consideration, I guess. So with that, you know, if there's any other, it's really up to the commission. I think there's some opportunities here that we could have some beneficial things come out of it for us. But I just wanted to present that for your consideration.
Good, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, may I ask
Yeah,
a question?
go ahead.
Chad, you and I talked briefly about this last week. I guess, and you touched on it, I think, you said that we can make the application, we're not bound to participate.
Correct.
Obviously, if there's a timeline, it has to be in by Friday, we could make the application and then look, kind of maybe see if it's something we want to pursue.
Correct.
Okay, if we don't get it in, we're out, but,
Yes.
if we get in, we're not bound to participate.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Now, and I also noticed that there's a 20%, generally a percentage.
Right, right.
Local funding matching.
They ask for a minimum of 20% for the funding. It depends on the scope of the study, depend on what, you know, obviously, our cost would be 20% of something, whether,
Right.
and that depends on the scope. Which my understanding is can be manipulated or is malleable to our desires and needs once we start receiving some input from an advisory group, from the DOT and such like that, to make this something that we won't be looking for. Yeah, we wouldn't be bound. All the costs that would be due, should this, we be awarded it, we work out a scope, I suspect there's an agreement of some sort, we wouldn't be bound to pay any costs until 2014. So, from the time of the application until the time that budget time comes around, I suspect we would know what that number would be, and could put that into the budget from whichever, you know, you've all been through the budget process, where that, if it's general fund or wherever, you know.
So we've never had any type of a survey like this before.
Not that I'm aware of, not that I've seen.
And are we just interested in it now because it was presented to us as it being available, or? I mean, I don't see a huge need for a lot of these things. I mean, some of them would be nice to have. I mean, the driving necessity behind, you know, how much of this can we not function without? I mean, is it going to deter us from any projects going into the future? I mean, not having this study. I mean, if there's something specific that we need to look at, I mean, I can understand that, but I see a lot of numbers in here between 80, 90, $120,000, and we don't have any of that. I mean, that goes a long ways towards a project as far as my concern with it would be.
Well, Nick, I think you hit on something when I talked to Chad, it's just because there's 80% money available doesn't mean you want to spend your 20% if you don't have
Exactly.
something in mind. But, you know, I guess, you know, I just, you know, this has come up just recently, and since we're not bound to it, I don't know that it would be a bad idea to just keep talking about it. I guess one of the things that kind of intrigues me is the fact that we've always been reactive and not proactive.
Right.
And maybe this is an idea, a chance to get a little bit ahead of the game. But, so I guess my thinking would be that, you know, if we can make the application, then maybe decide whether we want to pursue it and to what extent. But that's just some general thoughts. But I agree with your idea, that, I mean, the question is, just because they're throwing money out, do we need to spend our money?
Right.
And with the 20%, we can kind of control that 20%. You know, $100,000 and $80,000, that was for the overall reports and studies. And
Yeah,
so
but there's some of them that were significantly higher than that, too.
175 or something, so yeah, well, that was.
I mean, Brookings was 175.
Yeah, Pennington County was quite a bit, but we can control that, and I think if we do the application, then we can determine, okay, where are the hot spots? And the areas where we maybe don't think we need it at, then we just don't need to be concerned. We can leave that part out of the study, but I also agree with Commissioner Erickson that, we got the hospital going in, we got all kinds of things going on with the bypass, we got the high school, and the high school with the new gymnasium and the new activities that they're going to be able to do, we're gonna have a lot of traffic coming in and out of that area, and I think anytime we can bring in some expertise and kind of help us to get people into those events and out of those events safely, certainly right now, just to put in the application, throw the hat in the ring for it, it's not gonna cost us a little bit of Chad's time and everything, but I think and then we can take a look at it, and I think your timing is probably pretty good, because then it comes in right before budget time as well.
Should be able to, I believe, right, in their consideration or evaluation of the
Okay.
applications, yeah.
That would certainly help us, because then we kind of know what we're going in, and then at that point, we can say, you know what? We don't have the time and the money for that study, and
Is this a yearly fund, or is this one-time money, or?
This would be a one-time
Okay, so
study.
it's not that makes a big deal. If it's not gonna be something that we are fairly sure is gonna be offered to us next year at this time.
Well, let me correct that, I misunderstood. This is, we got a letter like this last year, we didn't pursue it.
Okay.
So, to my knowledge, I don't recall if we got one the year before, but we got one last year, and we got one this year. I don't know I think it is related to the highway bill, with the funds in these new highway bills. If they say you have to spend so much on this planning, that'll govern it. I wish I could tell you, but I thought you were talking about, are we gonna have a budget for a
No,
study
no.
annually? No, this probably will come back around, in subsequent years.
Maybe.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, there's nothing that's
After this
guaranteed.
sequester goes through, who knows what's
Oh.
gonna be available.
Yeah.
Well,
No,
under the second paragraph under funding, it appears to me, before the study will be authorized, a reimbursement contract between the local entity and the South Dakota DOT will need to be executed. Now, it seemed to me that'd be the yes or no time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we decide not to sign or execute the contract, we're out. At that point, if there's something in there that we're not happy with, the price, the scope, and, those
Yeah.
types of things, so. And that would have to be done before the studies begin, they say in July or August of 20 or 15.
Right.
If I'm reading that right. Of course, there's no assurance that we'd be accepted either.
That's true.
There may be
That's true.
higher priority applications on the list
Right.
than ours for projects, but.
Right. And so I would anticipate there'll be, if should the commission want to proceed, we could submit this, and then we'll continue to refine the scope prior to these discussions with them, again, should we be selected, to try to make sure we're asking for things that we truly think are needs, because I think also if this is available in subsequent years, there's nothing to say you couldn't do something if it arose later on, So just try to be smart with our.
And maybe the folks from DOT, they'll come into our city and look at it from a different perspective and maybe give us some other ideas as well.
Yeah.
And we can do all of that prior to even spending any money, so.
I do think, I agree totally that I don't want to do a study just to do a study. But I do know that there's, through everything that's been going on over the last year, with the businesses moving in, businesses moving, there's a lot of change that's happened in town, and there's a lot of questions that have risen over that time about which direction we're gonna go with certain parts of our infrastructure, just our policies. Are we gonna have some management of access management, those type of things that we really don't have? And, there are studies here that would really help us move forward, and I think it's very important to take a step back and look at what's happened over the last time, what's going to happen in a 5-year period. There is significant change in our communities, and that will have an impact on us, and I think it's important for us to be looking ahead rather than, like you said, let the truck run us over and then try to figure out how we're going to deal with it. The hospital moving, that in itself changes a lot of dynamics of our community. There's a lot of traffic that goes in that core area because of the hospital that's now leaving. What does that do? What roads are now going to become main arteries that we have no intentions of them being a main artery, or never did, but now that if the hospital's sitting where it is, are people going to use different routes? Is that going to change, like you said, speed limits, stop signs, maintenance that we're going to do on them? So I think this may be a good time to really stop and take a look at some of that stuff.
Chad, do you think you're gonna have an inordinate amount of your time just putting this together?
No,
It's
no,
not
it's
gonna
a-
take much of it.
No, it's only a 3-page application, and a lot of it's just check boxes and who's the contact person and such like that, so, no, I don't think so, no. Actually, I have most of it in a draft, just for preparation for this discussion in there, and then if, depending on feedback or whatever from the commission, that can be added to or deleted and so on and so forth. So, no.
Do we need to give you a motion or just a direction to
I don't-
proceed, or?
I don't,
You wouldn't have to do it with a motion, you're not tying up any funds. So
Okay.
you could certainly just give the engineer some direction. If you wanted to do it by motion, you can, but it's not necessary.
I think we just direct you to go ahead and put that in and put in the application and continue on with your work on it.
okay.
I think in the meantime, I think we all need to take time and kind of think through all the issues and see if there may be a hybrid of some of this that really is the best fit for us. Or, again, at the end, we might decide that it's not the right time for any of these,
Yeah,
but.
I guess that's where I'm at. I'd like to not miss the opportunity to file the application, but have more time to consider whether we want to do it.
Right.
That's kind of where I'm at.
The matter will have to come back before the commission if we're approved.
Right.
For us to execute the agreement or make any expenditure of funds.
Perhaps in the interim, I provided some links, I know you all are very busy and such, but you can see some of the output or even just executive summaries from some of those particular Brookings and Vermillion. They did some, and even the Pennington County one is pretty interesting as well.
Double check the Vermillion one. I think that one went away. So, it wasn't on their website
Oh,
anymore.
okay.
So-
I'll look and check into that link if they moved it or something there.
Thanks for doing that, though. There's, like Commissioner Delzer said, there's a lot of positive things that are happening that are gonna really take an effect and change in our community, and
I'll keep you posted, keep you all posted.
very good. Thank you.
And also, Chad, maybe you could get a hold of a copy or two of the recent studies that they've done that we could take a look at in the
Okay.
interim time here.
All right, I can do
from
that.
A couple different areas. It might be interesting to see what was included in those.
Okay?
Okay, if there's nothing else on that, we will move forward to new business number 2. Bid number 806, electric materials.
I can work with Chad on it. Sure. Okay. I talked to Dennis about this. This is our project, I think it's in the southwest corner of town, isn't it, down by the light plant?
Southwest, little upper, a little bit more than just the southwest corner, but yeah, right in that area.
And you've got before you the schedule of the bids that came back and the recommendations, and if you look at some of the bid numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5s, I went over with Dennis, and there are some of the bids that appear to be lower on some of these things, but There's some issues with the deliverability. I think one of them was bid number 3. If you look at bid number 3, I think that was, there's some other ones that are lower. But the delivery dates are so far out, we can't get the project done, from what Dennis talked to me about.
Right.
So, otherwise, I think the proposal shows the bids and the recommendations for all 5 of the bids. Chad, do you have anything else you want?
No, that pretty much covers it, except I'll just note for the transformers, there's included a total base prices, which is what we would pay, but the evaluation price is based upon somewhat of a life cycle analysis, so to speak. And so that's the actually, what it sounds like, it's the evaluation price. So for example, bid number 1, you can see the recommended one is from Resco, but Irby actually has a lower total upfront first cost to us. But in the long run, the evaluation price, which is all preset in formulas, it's advised of the bidders and so on and so forth, that they know what is going to be the valuation. That's just something I want to point out in case you noticed that why the base price for Irby is lower, why are we recommending award it to Resco? But it's based upon somewhat of a life cycle cost analysis, if you will. Otherwise, any other recommendations with lower, like Commissioner Erickson mentioned, lower bids would be because of delivery, what's the term in bid laws? They couldn't perform and meet the standard. They don't.
Well, you have the bid information before you there, and the recommendations. What we're accepting then is the base bid from the recommended bidders then by DG&R Engineering.
Do you want a motion? on each?
Three-phase pad mount transformers, single-phase pad mount transformers, primary power cable, secondary power cable, and pad mount switches. 5 proposals in all.
You could just.
Do we need a motion on each?
You probably could, since
Proposal?
Resco, since 2 bidders, there's 5 proposals that were low bids by 2 different bidders, you could probably award proposals 1, 2, and 5 to Resco, and 3 and 4 to Wesco in 2 separate motions, perhaps?
You could do it in 2 motions.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I will move that we accept for proposal number 1, 2, and 5, the bid of Resco. As to bid 1, proposal 1, the evaluation, we do the bid price, right?
That's what
Bid
we'll
price.
pay, the evaluation prices are, the bid price is what we'll pay, yeah.
Right, for bid 1 would be $7,173. For proposal number 2, the bid price would be, or base bid would be $44,953. And for proposal number 5, the bid price would be $43,677.
Okay, and those,
That's 1, 2, and 5.
okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to second then to accept the bid price, base bid prices on proposal number 1, 2, and 5 from Resco, R-E-S-C-O, of Moorhead, Minnesota, and the prices that were listed. Any further questions or speaking? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion is carried. We would then need a motion for the Wesco, W-E-S-C-O. I used to know what all those terminologies were, but.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move that we accept the bid of Wesco of Sioux City, Iowa for proposal number 3, and that base bid of $56,505.60. And for proposal number 4, also of Wesco, Sioux City, Iowa, of $30,628.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. We accept the low bids and the base bid as described for proposal number 3 and 4 from Wesco of Sioux City, Iowa for the electrical materials. Any further questions or speaking? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion is carried. Suppose that storm out on the East Coast wiped out a lot of electrical. Okay, new business number 3, sale of water meters to Hysiga Meadows Water. Brad, you got a sale for us, huh?
Well, we did. Actually, we've advertised this as one of 3 that shows interest. These folks actually pulled the trigger on it and actually want to buy 100 of our meters. So these are the ones that we declared used, surplus. So that's for commission approval to go ahead and conclude the sale of these meters to this water system.
100 used meters at a price of $25 each. Hysiga Meadows Water is out of Rapid City, South Dakota. Anybody got a better deal?
No.
Not me.
I'll move the approval of the sale of the 100 used water meters for $25 a meter to Hysiga Meadow Water System.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded that we approve the sale of our 100 of our used water meters at $25 each to Hysiga Meadows Water of Rapid City, South Dakota. Any questions or speaking on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion is carried. The business number 4, we have a personnel recommendation.
Make a motion to approve personnel recommendation.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded that we approve the personnel recommendations as presented. Any questions or speaking? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion is carried. Unless there's any announcements, that concludes the regular order of business for this meeting of February 25th. Are you ready to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded that we adjourn the meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion is carried.
Is this your email?
Meeting is adjourned.
That looked like-
Good night, everybody.